it's me, Jay, your DM. I use he, him.
I'm Jerika. I use she, her.
And I am Air, and I use he and him.
And this is Insight Check, where we delve into the dungeon of your bad decisions and retrieve the treasure of wisdom.
Surprise, it's wisdom.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
I have two Franz here. I wasn't here last week, so it's like fresh, it's exciting, new energy.
I'm a spider. That's the kind of frond I am.
Oh,
Gotcha.
Context is queen. Context is queen.
I wasn't here last time, so I've got like new energy. I feel like a new kind of like power flowing through me. We're gonna explore that power. We got the Friday weirds going on. It's Friday. It's been a long week. Everybody's kind of weird and crazy. I'm a professional game developer now.
It's the best day.
Yeah, it's great. It's been a week. Air, is launching their new career
As a singer-songwriter.
as
All
a singer,
original work.
a singer-songwriter / comedian.
Or comedian.
Yeah, it could be.
Comedian. Actually, I had an idea for a bard. Comedian.
Oh man, that's a worse.
God.
That's a worse song, honestly. I gotta
I
say.
just peeked out. I love that song.
No, Karma Chameleon is a great
Shut
song,
your
but
mouth. Okay.
Karma Chameleon is a great song.
Comedian.
But I've yet to meet a comedian I like. So I haven't really met a comedian yet either,
You
though.
just said I was a comedian.
You're about to be a comedian. You haven't made it yet, Air. Don't get ahead of yourself.
Yes, well,
You need to shed your outer layer and emerge fully fleshed into your comedian state.
Great.
Spread my comedian
So you're
wings.
insinuating here that like a comedian is some sort of larval creature
No,
that
it's
does
a
go through a life
post-larval
transition.
creature. It's got an abdomen.
Okay,
got
hang
a
on.
thorax.
I think I can
Like
make
my
a
humor thorax. Yeah.
yeah. So
Wings.
if the comedian is the
Leggies.
butterfly state, then
Yeah.
I guess a failed college student would be the pupil state. And then the kid who wouldn't shut up in class is the larval state.
Oh my goodness. We're making some wild assumptions
We're
here.
making some
Insight
enemies
Check.
tonight on Insight
pain
Check.
with his fingers, singing
Singing
my
my
life.
Listen,
with
singing will
words.
happen later. Singing will happen in its
Killing
own
me
time.
softly with his song, killing me softly. We can't stop
It is-
Jerika from singing.
It is so Friday. It is so
I'm
Friday.
telling you.
Friday.
Listen, I said it on Twitter and I'll say it again. There's a weird Friday energy that sometimes
true.
manifests. We're going to call it from here on, we're just going to call it WFE. That WFE. That weird Friday
It's not
energy.
WEIFE? Like
Oh.
wife?
Why not just add a U at the
It
end and it can be our
started with-
waifu?
No.
It started with a question though. Wife.
Why?
Wife.
All right. Well, that weird Friday energy isn't going to stop me from transitioning
Big
us
Friday
into
energy.
the Dungeon Crawl. Dungeon Crawl is the part of the show where we talk about the things that are cool and exciting from Dungeons and Dragons and other tabletop RPGs over the last week. Air, I think you've got a powerful, imposing beginning ready for us, don't you?
I hope to. Don't oversell it. Don't even try to
It's
sell
going to
it.
be great.
Worth
It's going to be
nothing.
life-changing.
It'll
It's
be
going
full
to...
of sales.
It will enrich you. You're going to come out better people.
So I haven't kept much abreast of the Dungeons and Dragons community of late. Things have been busy. What I have kept my eye on, my ear on, is the podcast and the excellent work of Embers and Lipacheski to
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. The excellent filkage.
Yes, filkage of them to the podcast. And I was like, well, I'm redundant. I don't need to
No.
be here anymore.
No.
I'll just go on.
not
But no, I'm going to reclaim
Yes.
my throne. I
Absolutely.
started being the one making sods about Dungeons
Sure.
and Dragons, and I love them, and I hope they never stop, and they're great people.
Right.
But I
you're
gotta
the
burn them to the
rightful
ground.
heir to this throne.
Oh, wait. So we've done a lot of they've been doing a lot of Dungeons and Dragons related covers, and then Maz. I was listening to the episode where we had Maz on, where Maz was talking about their Thursday Ravenloft Curse of Strahd game.
Of Strahd.
The Thirst of Strahd. And it inspired me to write this
No, it's the Thurs of Strahd.
Well, it is the Thurs of Strahd, but then Jay said it was the Thirst of Strahd. And I thought, horny vampires, that's the song I want to write.
So is this also a cover?
No, this is a wholly original composition, and I am not... Yeah, it's totally a cover.
Okay.
It's absolutely
wow.
a
Well,
cover.
listen, this is great because this can go into our new album of cover songs, which I'm calling Full Cover.
Oh, perfect.
Our D&D arrangements of covers.
I love it. I love it. I cannot be hit by anything except Sacred Flame. Only Holy Fire can stop me now.
So go ahead and just look for that on iTunes. It's going to cost $99.99 because it is worth every cent. Here we go, Air. Let's see what we got.
All right. Well, I woke up this evening on the throne in my castle's depths. Tussled with a bunch of heroic folks until they bled and they wept. Said I'm sick and tired of living, and I wish that they could bring an end to this endless thirst, to this mad Barovian king. And I said, ooh, wow, the scoundrel often they're trying to find and slay me. Ooh, I'll be feasting on the blood of some pretty lady inside. Cause it's the thirst of Strahd, and indoor sucking's about to start. So bring someone who's veiny, or at least your favorite nape. The body's not cold when I dip in my fangs, so people might think it's infiltrated licked, or the sun's above, well the line below, and I make silings with a crazy little thing called sucking inside. Sucking inside.
Woo!
Oh my God. Air!
For two ace people, that was pretty risque.
You know, I wasn't playing to my audience, was I?
That song was
Listen, we all gotta
so horny.
But, I mean, appropriate, right?
Oh my God, that was so good. I'm glad I muted myself before you started singing because I was just laughing through the whole thing. It would have been impossible to hear Air's song go. Whew, oh my God, Air, you criminal,
Good job.
you sinner.
There's a lot of sin involved, but in my defense, everyone's got to eat, including vampires. It's
true.
If you applied any sort of sexual dynamic to that song, that's your minds in the gutter, people, not me.
Right, fair. Oh my God.
How do you follow that?
Well, anyway, that was Dungeon Crawl. Let's see. Other things that happened in tabletop RPGs this week. We got a lot of new people announced for Descent, and Critical Role made $11 million. So, great week. Jerika, do you have something?
Yeah, a previous guest who we've had on, Kiana, released her thesis findings.
And graduated. Congratulations
Yes,
to Kiana.
congrats.
Congratulations if you're listening, Kiana.
Congratulation.
Yeah.
Graduation, Professor Higgins. No. It's Dungeons and Dragons and live streaming. So that's what she did her thesis work on. It is at the following link. https:// big H, little O, big L, big L, big V, big N, little E, little P, little A.
Trika, I will put
means
together a
blinking.
bit.ly for this right now.
It is a bit.
Oh, God.
It says and she's also made a guide to audiences' impact on narrative in D&D live streams, observations, theories, and principles. So this is really nifty. You should go to the link at which I just cited, or find it on our Twitter.
Yeah, it's definitely
Or her
retweeted on our
Twitter.
Twitter. Yeah.
Let me just read some takeaways. Audience interactions in D&D live streams have a profound impact on the narrative within the game. That's all you need to know.
That's
Go
it.
read
Yeah,
it.
the question's answered.
Yeah?
You wanted to know if it had an impact? It does. The end.
She's done a lot of really good work here,
Yeah.
and I'm really impressed by her whole lot of work.
Like, equally impressive is the fact that they did this while also streaming 6 days a week and doing cosplay stuff and working, and just like incredible amount of work went into this, and we're all very glad for them. We want to see them continue to succeed in the future. So great. If you're streaming D&D, it's going to be a valuable resource to you because it's going to give you insight into how you can best make use of your audience and what your audience can lend to your game. For my dungeon crawl, I have nothing. Moving on to questions. Listen, there was a gross cough here. I'm just going to admit it. But I edited it out because it's gross. Just pretend you hear a gross cough coming from me.
Gross.
Yeah.
Expunge your human face holes.
Yeah.
Definitely not a K-drama actor, this one.
No, not me. I do not
never
have.
make those noises.
I do not have any of the qualifying features of a K-drama actor. I lack, obviously I lack the beautiful K-drama actor features. But more importantly, they have this way of, looking at the camera where you feel like, oh, they might be in love with me, actually.
Audience
Wow.
participation.
Wow.
Hubba hubba.
Yeah, exactly. So, I can't master that look, that soul-penetrating stare, so
Now,
I'm not there yet.
listeners, I am looking right at you. Yes, you, listener. Right into your soul.
Oh, man, it was a little asthma until you said souls.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
they went way off.
I mean, that soothes is asthma for someone, so
No, I don't think so.
all audio is asthma,
Asthma
for
has a
someone,
very
Jay.
specific
Nope.
asthma has a pretty specific definition there, buddy.
There's someone out there that's just happily.
There's a difference between asthma and a kink air. All right, like
The jury's still out on that one.
Yeah.
fair.
There's someone there whose spine is tingling from nails on a chalkboard. You don't judge.
Why are we now calling it asthma? Has the world shifted on its axis slightly?
What do you mean? It's asthma.
I have not called it asthma ever.
What do you call it?
ASMR.
Oh, it's asthma. That's easier to
boy.
say.
Well, then it's like,
Viewers, vote at home. Is it asthma or ASMR?
We'll have a poll on our Twitter.
Get back to us. Just drop us a message somewhere on the internet.
we're asking you questions.
Yeah, we've turned the tables. Welcome to Insight Check,
Frankly,
where we
you
quiz
owe
you.
us. Yeah.
Frankly, you owe us.
Yeah, we've delivered so much wisdom to you. How dare you not give us this?
More reason for infighting. Yay!
Yeah, Infight Check.
Yeah,
true.
pretty much.
Yeah,
Anyway.
we gotta wrestle. All right, coming to you live this Sunday.
Don't you mean wrestle?
Wrestling? No, I don't. I never mean wrestling. I left that behind long ago. How dare you bring up my past?
You were in the Beverly Hillbillies?
I was a Southerner. Y'all, let's get down to some questions before this
Okay.
conversation gets any more
Sounds
out in the
good.
wild. I told you Friday's got some weird energy. I warned y'all.
Well, I'm okay if you're okay.
All right, what's our first cue? Delivered fresh.
This question comes to us from Malvidian. Malvidian asks, if you could have WotC re-release one old D&D campaign setting, Dark Sun, Planescape, Spelljammer, etc., for 5e, which one would it be and why?
Let me just take a wild stab at this, Jerika. Just get my hunch in there, okay? I'm almost certain it's Greyhawk, isn't it?
No.
I know. Is it Planescape?
No.
No? Oh, okay. I'm into it. What's up?
Spelljammer.
Ah.
Because then you could have, like like a Sailor Scout, Sailor Senshi campaign where each let's say magical person is from like a specific planet or whatever. Could do that magical girl bullshit that I love.
Spelljammer's nice because you can really kind of do. It's sort of like Planescape in that you can do pretty much anything in it. It's sort of no holds barred.
It's getting my science fiction and my fantasy, which I absolutely adore.
I guess for me, I would just like to
live another day. I suppose you could arrange that.
Or not.
Great.
Good cop, bad cop.
For me, I guess I'd like to play around in some old Greyhawk stuff. I mean, I just want to see what the original Dungeons and Dragons is like as much as possible. What I honestly want is to get into a time travel and play Dungeons and Dragons in the 80s. That's what I would really enjoy.
Really?
But short of that...
Really? That means you don't want to play with women and you don't want to play with...
That's not true. They played back then, even if people weren't nice to them.
I guess so.
But no, I'm curious about the roots of the hobby and how things were done in the olden days. Not necessarily because I think they were better, but just because I'm curious. I'm just curious.
Anthropologically, kind of.
Yeah, I have that kind of like desire to know the history of our hobby kind of itch. So Greyhawk would be nice just to sort of see what it's like.
Now, I was really confused for a second. I thought Greyhawk was Grayskull. But now I see
that would also be
two
cool.
Different things.
Yeah.
And yes, I would pick Grayskull.
Yes.
As my choice,
so
but
Grayskull is a universe where spacemen wear little clothes and are extremely muscular.
That is Jerika's brain.
Yeah. Greyhawk is a setting that is very, very generically Western fantasy.
Oh.
It's big on the political intrigue and like
is it like
lords.
Game of Thrones?
I mean, I don't think
Like that
anything
kind of bullshit.
I don't think anything was Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones was Game of Thrones. I think that I think Game of Thrones was uniquely itself. I think it aspired to be Game of Thrones-esque without knowing what that was. But I don't think it ever quite achieved the lofty heights of the political maneuverings of that story. And, generally speaking, it was more about, like, going into dungeons than I've found. I don't think that there's been a single dungeon in Game of Thrones. I might be wrong.
There was definitely a catacombs where the mom
Starks.
was Liana, I think.
Fair. Did they fight
There
any
could
skeletons?
Definitely be a dungeon. I feel like there was an encounter of some sort.
Oh, well, there you go. Air, do you have a setting?
Dark Sun, for sure. I think it is absolutely...
Psionics.
What do you like about Dark Sun?
There's no magic.
That sounds terrible.
It's not that there's no magic. It's so quintessentially a product of its time. It is so 90s. This whole like ecological. It's Captain Planet, but super dark, essentially.
Nice.
Yeah, it's there is magic, but magic has been used to. It was Final Fantasy VII before Final Fantasy VII was Final Fantasy VII. Draining the life force of the planet in order to do magic and all of this stuff. I like the way that they play with a lot of the races where the elves are kind of nomadic and scavengers.
Jerry's all about those thrycreens.
Those thrycreens, them big old
Mantis men.
I couldn't remember what bug specifically. But I learned about Dark Sun through Jerry's kind of mini campaign that they did for WotC in that setting. Back when they were kind of doing the whole hacking thing as marketing for 4E. And I was like, oh, this is super. I can see why he loved it, because it would have been right when he was getting into the hobby. It was super 90s. It tied to all those things where we were just really becoming environmentally conscious as a society, and it played into all those tropes. So I would love to see something like that come out. And I do have a thing for low magic settings. But psionics are basically magic, and there's all the villains are sorcerers, and you can do good magic if you're a preserver and blah blah blah. So
yeah, an honorable mention, I guess, to Dragonlance because a lot of people love it, and I feel like we'd get killed if we didn't mention it. So Dragonlance also is good.
Heart crit.
I have another question.
Let's have it.
This question is from Malvidian.
You don't say.
Another one.
Malvidian asks, is it true that Air's bard, Bertrand Beasinger, had magical nipple rings? Hashtag asking for a friend. I see you, Mal. I see you.
My answer to that question is Mal would have known because his PC would have found out if he ever played his cards right when my bard was flirting with him, but never once.
Yeah. You closed the door on those nipples. And now you gotta live with that.
Is the shirt? Is that a metaphor for a shirt?
You closed the metaphorical door on those non-metaphorical nipples. Air, you've got some questions.
I absolutely have some questions. My first question.
Are we gonna be talking about anybody else's nipples?
I mean, I don't know what the evening holds.
I
don't want to put out a strong no nipple policy right at the front.
All right, you're not ready to say no to nipples as in general. All right.
Listen,
well, listeners,
nipples
you've been warned.
are always on the table. No.
Wait, what?
Tell me more about that.
No,
nope,
don't. Actually, just tell us your question.
That's it. My first question comes from someone at Malvidian.
Oh my God.
Who is that? Never heard of them.
Did he really pick 3 Malvidians?
He has a lot of questions.
He has a lot of questions.
He's a curious boy.
Yeah,
yes.
This is the Malvidian
He's like
episode.
Dora the questioner.
What are 2 minor magic items that you feel are underrated? Which I think is fun. I know with Xanathars, they had those fun common magical items, almost like gray magical items. They weren't particularly powerful, but they had fun effects. The Cloak of Billowing was definitely very cool. The one that I'm going to just go with one right now because it was one I feel I got a lot of use out of is the Flask of Endless Water, which
You mean the decanter of endless water?
Decanter of Endless Water. I think in our campaign we ended up calling it the Flask of Endless Soup because of the icon Jay found for it.
Nice.
But yeah, it has a little push effect on it, and basically you can use it like a fire hose. I think I used it once to push like a cannonball that was about to explode off the deck of the ship. There was a lot of kind of fun uses for it for when you're a weak little caster, having, a forced push in a line with strength save is kind of nice to have in your back pocket. So that's one of my favorites.
I've found the Wand of Smiles to be incredibly debilitating to enemies. I gave it out as a joke, and it has actually fucked up some encounters. So yeah, it's stronger than it seems.
Really? How did it?
Yeah.
Because
it lasts a minute. The Wand of Smiles lasts a minute.
But it only makes them smile. How is
No,
smiling
it makes them
tactical?
laugh, which means that they can't use somatic components.
Oh, I thought it just made them smile.
It made them laugh. They laugh.
Very powerful, actually.
Yeah, that's actually strong. Yeah. Anyway, Wand of Smiles is stronger than you think. Give it with caution.
I like the Horn of Silent Alarm.
Mm-hmm. Tell us all about it.
Party conflict. So it makes you designate one target, and only the target can hear the alarm, and it's terrible sounding.
Wow, that's really annoying. It's like a dog whistle that only one of your party members can hear.
Yep, and even the person who has it can't hear it either.
Yeah, so you can just blow it all day. A Horn of Silent Alarm sounds kind of cool. It's useful as an item because you can signal to your party member when you have a plan, but it's also great for pissing them off.
Yeah, and if I think it works over distances, so you might not know that they've acknowledged that the alarm has gone off. So boy, it might be ringing for a while. Ooze
the Muse at Dirt McGurk on Twitter says, RP over meta. What's a standout moment you had from your character or someone else's character in a game where they made a choice that wasn't the best choice, quotation marks?
All the time.
Every session with I have a player named Duck. He goes by the username Duck. His online persona is @notduck or not a duck. Every choice he
Can't
makes
make up his
is
mind, that one.
Yeah, every choice he makes is antithetical to the existence of the party. He walks into every trap. He does every mistake. He deals with every demon. He accepts every evil offer offered to him. He is a chaos player, and he makes life very stressful for both the party and me as a DM. Because his philosophy towards Dungeons and Dragons, which I think is a very good philosophy, but his philosophy towards Dungeons and Dragons is, oh, that seems entertaining. Sure. Let's try it. If he sees a trap and he doesn't know what it does, he is curious what it does, and he will set it off on himself because he wants to see what it does.
That is a lot of chaos. That is like, he didn't even bother to fill in like good or evil. He just wrote chaotic on the page. No bonds, no flaws. No spells, no features. Just chaos. Great. Good times.
So can you think of a specific instance that you would like to mention?
Jerika becoming a tabaxi comes to mind.
Yeah. My favorite part about that whole scene was like, it was like, okay, this crazy weirdo dentist turned you into a tabaxi. Okay, whatever. But then like everybody's like, okay, so how do we fix this? And then Jerika's like, we don't really have to.
Fix what? Yeah.
This is fine. Okay.
And you gave me a big out. You were like, do you, Banna, want to remain a tabaxi for the rest of your life? And she was like, yeah.
Yeah, of course. And that's how Banna became a tabaxi. It was fine.
But how often do you get that choice?
Yeah, sure.
It's true. It's absolutely
life.
true. Yeah, in life. How
Maybe
often
once,
do you become
maybe
your
twice
persona?
if you're lucky.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I mean, full on, like, total realism. Like, that's, damn, you'd pay thousands of dollars. Being a dragonborn druid and attacking a guy on the street while being a small dog is not an optimal choice. You should run away first. There you go.
When Haley had like a bag full of like chaos seeds from her chaos sword.
Oh yeah.
And just was tossing them willy-nilly. Like we'd spent a week planning how to get away from this ancient red dragon, and we managed, and the plan worked.
No, it wasn't willy-nilly. There was a reason why she planted it on the ship.
I can't remember. What was the reason?
I think she wanted to see it grow.
She wanted to see what would happen?
Yeah.
No, it was like, I like
strongly
plants, so I'm gonna make this one thrive. Oops, there's the dragon.
I thought it was that we thought we were in the clear, and it was like, well, now we have some downtime. Let's see what this does. And like, oh god, it's the dragon. It's back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but it was super funny. So Fia had a sword that whenever she killed something, spat on a seed. And the seed had a percentile table, but it was basically just 4 outcomes. It was either the best possible thing, a good thing, a bad thing, or the worst possible thing. And the worst possible thing is what they rolled, and it was a dragon that hated them, was summoned onto their boat.
The one that we had spent a week planning how to get away from and had just gotten away from.
Yeah, it was summoned onto their boat, and it was like, hey, sup? And it did a big old fight. But fortunately, they got away. Choosing chaos is fun in Dungeons and Dragons.
I would say there's a spectrum. And being on the extremes is never a good choice.
Yeah, there's a point where you're duck.
There's a point where you're duck and the rest of your party members are like face palming every 3 seconds.
Our dear friend, the drunk phytologist, Rochelle, asks the following. Sometimes I struggle with keeping track of concentration versus versus non-concentration spells and policing my players. Any advice on when to stick to the rules or just go with the rule of cool and let it slide? For context, I run a game with my family and over half the players are new to D&D. I hate telling them no, but my brothers and my husband will pull that Pat Rothfuss bullshit if I let them get away with too much. And I like this question because I wrote about this on our Twitter some time ago, but I feel like concentration is kind of problematic because it has to serve two purposes at once. It's both responsible for making sure you can't stack buffs infinitely. So you can't just constantly be having 1,000 different concentration spells going on and, making one character in the party a god. But it also is meant to restrict spells that, if there wasn't an easy way to end them by doing damage, they would just be too powerful. Things like polymorph, where you can become a T-Rex. If you didn't have to make a concentration check when you took damage in that form, you just keep being a T-Rex and it'd be like a far more amazing version of Wild Shape.
So, first of all, I would say that, for me at least, concentration is one of the few rules where I'm not super rule of cool. Like, I wouldn't mess with concentration too much. A lot of the game is balanced on the back of that one ability. So, like, I don't know. If you let people, like, cast 2 spells at once, that could really make one player shine a lot more than maybe they should. There's few rules where I'm not like, fuck it, let's just do whatever, whatever, somebody's like, hey, I want to use my bonus action to attack, but I didn't attack with my main action. I'm like, fuck it, just use your bonus action to attack, I don't care. Or somebody's like, hey, I want to drink this potion as a bonus action. Whatever, go ahead and do it. But like with concentration, it's not as easy to just be like, fuck it, cast 2 spells that are ongoing and will completely debilitate the enemy.
I definitely agree. I think concentration as a gate for having multiple buffs or whatever up is a good thing. The whole making sure it stays up, like checking for it when you take damage, I find a little bit tedious. And I think in some instances, I don't care. Like, as a warlock, you have 2 spell slots going into battle for most of your career. If you're going to use one of them to do, and not every warlock needs to do this, but yield combination of Eldritch Blast plus Hex, one of those spell slots is going towards Hex. And yes, it lasts for a long time, but if the warlock does any other spell and then they take damage and they lose their concentration on Hex, it kind of sucks, considering it's kind of their bread and butter. So those kind of things like Hex or Hunter's Mark or even like Shield of Faith, where it's just like a little buff, bless, I really don't care about checking for concentration. I'm not going to let them concentrate on a second spell on top of it, but I really don't care to have them do con saves against it, because just have the spell.
I mean, it depends, I guess. I wouldn't like be upset if I forgot around and they got away with some extra hex time when they maybe should have dropped it. But I probably do keep the checks going, just because things like clerics and stuff like that, whose concentration spells are really powerful. And if I allow it for one player, I feel really bad to not allow it for another player. Like she's mentioning here, she has some more experienced players and some less experienced players. And for the more experienced players, you want to be like harsh with the rules, but with the less experienced players, you kind of want to let them get away with it. But you can't really do that, because that makes the more experienced players feel like punished for being knowledgeable, which is kind of weird. But for tracking, I do have a solution for that. I play online mostly, and on Roll20, they allow you to apply a little dot to a player. So I put a little green concentration dot on players who are concentrating. And so that way, whenever I make attacks, if I see the green dot, I know I have to call for a concentration check. But if you're playing in real life, you might do something like the ring off of a milk carton. The little plastic ring at the top of a milk carton, you just pop that thing off and put it on your character. And that'll help you remember.
Matt Mercer on the token?
Yeah. Absolutely. Just call him over. He's full-time D&D these days.
Phone. Yeah. Everyone who plays Dungeons and Dragons automatically gets Matt Mercer's phone number.
Matt, he's full-time D&D. It's in the back of the PHP. The latest editions. If you got a first edition, it might not be.
Oh, I was like, because I was going to say that came out before Critical Role was such a widespread success. How prescient.
It was in the new revision that they just released.
Of course.
You get Matt Mercer's phone number. You get Matt Colville's Skype, and you get Adam Colville's address.
And you get Chris Perkins' whimsical charms.
And Jeremy Crawford's midriff.
Wait, what? Wait.
Whoa, wow. Whoa.
We went back to the intro.
We're
back in the Thirst for Strahd.
Crawford's midriff? Well, the box set basically sells itself, doesn't it?
But yeah, so a little marker on the token could help you with remembering to
We are
keep those
never
checks in
getting
mind.
Jeremy Crawford as a guest. If he even looks into this podcast a little bit. Not that it was even
We'll
in
be
the
lucky
realm
if we
of
don't get some sort of
possibility.
libel suit.
Yeah.
I don't have a midriff. Don't spread lies about me. I've been very
You will cease and
self-conscious about my
desist
lack
in the
of a
use of
midriff.
the following terms. Scare quotes, heat machine.
Heat machine. What was the other one? Power bottom? No, it wasn't.
No.
Crawdaddy.
It wasn't that.
Crawdaddy.
Which has
Crawdaddy,
nothing to
that
do
was-
with power bottoms. Not that being a power bottom is bad.
Yeah. Jeremy. We made a guarantee where we would make up new ones each time, right? So now okay, so here we go.
We are quite far behind there.
Jeremy.
Midriff awesomeness. Crawford.
Jeremy Midriff Crawford. All right, I'll take it. We'll accept that into the canon of Crawford
Great.
nicknames.
Perfect. My job here is done. Mic drop.
Okay. What are your thoughts about the application of pugilism to settle player versus DM rule disagreement? I've been applying Queensberry rules, but I don't know if 5e has its own governance for mid-game chivalry. So pugilism is fist fighting.
And this is asked by possibility.
Yeah, asked by possibility
Absolutely.
at poor stability.
Horse-torability. Great.
Pugilism is fist fighting. So basically what possibility is
fancy
insinuating
punches.
here.
When can you have fisticuffs?
Yeah, when can we fist fight our DMs?
Never.
All right.
When they start it.
Here's the deal. If you use your once a day ability and they do something to completely circumvent it and just ignore your cool shit, then you can go to fist fighting. That's when it's fair.
Wow. Not even starting with a slap?
No, you gotta.
Or like a taunt?
So okay. Well,
Verbal
now you're getting
blows?
into the 5e rules for escalation. So according to 5th edition,
that you're publishing on DM's Guild
yeah,
next week?
according to the player's handbook in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, when you and your DM, when your DM and you have a disagreement, first. I think we all know the first step is for escalation is snippy undercutting remarks. You just start giving some real shade. Just start throwing shade. And if you feel like the issue hasn't been settled by your passive aggressive shade throwing, then you can begin with insulting. Now, of course, insults need to remain neutral. We can't go about being completely crass and insulting each other.
Like, which insult category does this fall in?
Yes.
You're a wanker.
Your wanker is too direct.
Factual.
Okay.
So,
All right. Not neutral.
So what we need to do is we need to say something like, "Oh wow, that's something a wanker might say."
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or maybe wow, fuck, your dog is ugly. That
seems direct.
That is escalating things in an appropriate way.
You don't say things about a man's dog.
Well, if they made a ruling in Dungeons and Dragons you don't like, and then you have to do something. Of course.
Can't just let it lie.
Yeah, exactly. Once the
It's all about dignity or manliness or
Oh,
now the rule about
Sure.
fisticuffs is the fight has to be going on for at least a week. So first you have to commit to a week of sniping each other via text messages and also involving the rest of the party against their will. So just sending them messages about the DM, talking shit about the DM, really being as awful a human being as you can be. And then if it's still going after a week and you haven't somehow after following these steps, if you haven't somehow come to an agreement, I don't know what's wrong with you, first of all. But second of all, that's when you start fist fighting in the streets. You have to go outside now. You cannot get blood on their carpet. If you get blood on their carpet,
but you
you're
have
wrong.
to wear your official D&D penny.
Right, and you have to roll before each punch. I mean, everybody knows a DM has AC 15.
I love that. Oh yeah. What level character is a DM?
There's no levels in real life. Don't be silly. But they do get a stat block.
That was deep. There are no levels in real life.
Don't be silly.
But you do get a stat block. DMs have AC 10, AC 15. Players have AC 10. DMs have 55 hit points, and you know that they're out of hit points when they start crying. Yeah.
So what you're telling me is the solution to issues in tabletop RPG is to LARP.
Yes, unfortunately.
Wow. Okay.
This goes back to
bolt.
ancient times.
Lightning bolt. Okay.
Yeah. Just like SNL told us.
Oh, boy.
That was a documentary, actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and if you follow any of this advice, you're an asshole. All right.
Disclaimer.
Yeah, just disclaimer. No, pugilism is never the answer. We put those days behind us in the dark ages of D&D in 1835. We had the council of Gygax, and we decided that we'd no longer fight each other in the streets, and that armor class should be a positive number, not a negative.
That also sounded like
Yeah.
it was spin. An armor class will be a positive and not a negative.
Yeah. And yea, armor class shall be a positive number henceforth.
Go forth and think no more.
Oof, that got real nerdy. And I blame myself. And that is this episode of Insight Check. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we would really appreciate if you would leave a comment on our iTunes page and give us a rating or review if you enjoyed the show. You can also find us at Insight Check Pod on Twitter. And you can also find our Discord there where you can come and hang out, and we talk too much about things that don't matter. We'd like to thank Amy T. Falcone for our faces, and we'd like to thank Vin Swept for the intro, Never Stand Alone. It is wonderful, and it has a lyrical version, if you didn't know that. I like to throw that in every so often. Sometimes people get surprised. And as always, answering your cues.
From our collective A's.
This
Was.
Insight Check! It's a good time.
Hello, it's me. Oh, that was too loud.